Hi everyone. Well, today I'm finally getting around to doing a new house review, which I've been attempting to do for a couple of weeks now. I did record my thoughts on all of the fragrances in this house last week and then found out later that the audio was not good. It had, for some reason, was very scratchy. So I have decided to refilm it because I think it would just be too much for people to sit through that. And as a consequence, because I'm a little bit pressed for time today, what I've decided to do is rather than doing the whole house in one video, I might just review one perfume at a time. So, which might make it more easy for you as well to sit through, because I know that my videos can get very, very long. Lately, I've been finding that most of my videos are going for at least sort of between 20 and 40 minutes. So I realized that not everyone has that amount of time to sit down and listen to me drone on. Right, so the house that I want to talk about today is called House of James. It's a new Australian house. They've been marketing on Instagram for a little while now, but I think they only released their fragrances last year. They currently have 5 fragrances in the line, and I actually got my introduction to this house because they were running a competition on Instagram and I just put my name down for it. I don't enter competitions that often anymore, but for this one, because it was an Australian house and I'm going through a process at the moment of trying to find more Australian perfumers, so I decided to put my name down on the competition and I won the competition. And that allowed me to select a bottle as my prize. And I am not going to talk about the bottle that I chose in today's video. Today's video is actually about a sample that Justin, the perfumer, sent with the bottle because he had seen me talking on Instagram about how I'm not, or in the past, I haven't been much of a vanilla fan in fragrances. And so he issued me with a bit of a challenge, I think, to send me this sample and to see what I thought about it. And I'm very grateful, Justin, thank you very much, because I did like it so much that following having used up the sample, I then went back and purchased not only a full discovery set from the house, but I also purchased a 10 ml vial of the perfume, which is this one here. So the perfume that I'm talking about is called Berlin New Year's Eve, and I'm not sure if this is going to come up. There we go. I will also put a picture of the bottle on the screen because obviously this is not the full presentation. But this is a very interesting fragrance, and I will say that it's not the type of fragrance that I would normally go for, but there is something about this that just has really caught my attention and I really like it, and also my partner Matt really likes it as well. So I've just had a shower, having been for a swim and done some exercise today, so I'm going to spritz this on and start from the beginning. So all the fragrances in the line, I believe, are based on Justin's experiences in various places in Europe when he traveled a few years ago, I'm guessing. And this one is called Berlin New Year's Eve because it's based off a scent memory that he had of being in Berlin on New Year's Eve, funnily enough. So this opens very sweet, and it has almost a plasticky sweetness to it. But if you've tried things like Tardes by Carner Barcelona, and people usually describe that as being a bit plasticky too, this is not that kind of plasticky. Basically, what I'm getting in that opening is a lot of sweetness, and it is a vanilla sweetness. But the note of vanilla in here is called electric vanilla. And Justin did kind of explain to me what he did to get that electric kind of vibe to it. And I guess that is kind of what I'm smelling. But when I think of it, if somebody says to me that a fragrance smells like electricity or an electric kind of feel, I think of, you know, when there's been an arc and you get that burnt electricity kind of smell, which is quite acrid and pungent. This is not that. This is, it conjures up images of being in the 90s with big hair, maybe late 80s even, big hair, lots of neon. So that's the, if you're thinking about it in terms of color, that is my first impression of the vanilla sweetness that's in the opening of this fragrance. And I will say that if you, I will put the notes up on the screen, but if you read the note listing, it doesn't smell anything like I imagined this would smell like. So it is a very unique fragrance. The sweetness then sort of almost becomes a little bit fruity in a way. And then after a couple of minutes, maybe 30 seconds to a minute or so, it becomes kind of like it gets a kind of a shampoo-y cleanness to it. That electric vanilla note is definitely has an edge to it. And it's not unpleasant, and it's not, I wouldn't even say it's sharp, but there is just something a little bit different about it. There is a twist to this, that electric, maybe it's the electric vibe or the other notes that are in here that give it gives it an adult feel. I got a very specific image in my head when I smelled this fragrance, particularly after a few minutes, once that initial blast of sweetness kind of settles down a little bit. And what I got was an image of a woman or a young woman, probably somebody in their 20s or something, dressed in a pink ballerina dress, with a black leather jacket and black leather boots, sort of chunky leather boots with maybe some ripped stockings or something. So that real grungy kind of look, you know, and maybe a straight bob that's been messed up and some really sort of quite striking kind of makeup that's a bit smudged, you know, that real smoky eye going on. So she's a bit punky, I guess, or a bit grungy. And the other part of the image was that I got this woman walking down a cobblestone street after the rain. So not in the rain, but it was dark and wet. And that was the image that I got in my head when I smelled this fragrance. And I guess where I'm going with that is that it's got this sweetness to it that is definitely has a feminine slant to it, but there's a grunginess to it, and it seems very adult. It's not innocent, but there's like a blend of this sort of innocent kind of aesthetic that's clashing with a very adult theme. But what I really like is the juxtaposition between the sweetness and almost a fruitiness to it with these darker elements in the fragrance. This has a civet note in it, which I think I get more as it dries down than I do in the opening. It doesn't smell super skanky or anything, although, as I said, there's like, you just kind of sense an adultness about this fragrance, but I don't get the sour sharpness that I can get from civet as I do in other fragrances. It's not in your face. I think it's just nicely balancing against the sweeter notes and the more innocent notes in the perfume. And interestingly for me, I feel like I get more of there is a peppercorn note in this that's meant to be a top note, but I feel like I get more of that after it's dried down a little bit. And I get more of the sort of the ambery notes, the balsamic notes, and I feel like I can really pick up that peppercorn. There is meant to be a fig note in here as well, which I think I get hints of it, but I don't necessarily, it's not a prominent kind of note. I definitely wouldn't call this a fig fragrance by any means, but it does give it kind of almost an earthy freshness. You know how fig in fragrances it sort of smells a little bit earthy and fruity at the same time, a little bit earthy, fruity and green. I feel like I kind of get that earthiness that fig has. Anyway, so it is really pleasant. The opening is probably, I mean, the opening of this fragrance is probably the most interesting part, but that initial blast of that electric vanilla in the opening is just so different to anything I've kind of smelled before. And it definitely gives you a very, well, for me anyway, it gave me a very clear depiction of a kind of era, I guess, for me in my life. And of course, I've never been to Berlin, but for me, it was sort of, it just cast me back to sort of the late 80s, early 90s, and big hair, lots of neon, and definitely lots of hairspray. But I do really enjoy the dry down of this. It's like a clean, ambery, peppery kind of dry down with a bit of vanilla in there too, but it's not too sweet because the sweetness, I think, again, is counterbalanced by that civet. And I guess the other thing that I want to point out is the animalic notes that are in these fragrances. I think I read on the website that they are synthetic, so they're not, so these fragrances effectively are also vegan friendly, if that is something that is of importance to you. So in any case, I am really enjoying this. I think it would work better for me in the winter, just when it's a bit, you know, I can imagine myself wearing this on a cold winter's day more than I can on a hot summer day like it is today, and possibly more of a nighttime fragrance than a daytime fragrance. But but I did, as I said, I did buy a 10 ml bottle of it after I had used up the sample that Justin very kindly sent to me, because I feel that it is a very unique and interesting fragrance. And in fact, I think it's fair to say that I think all of the fragrances in this house are definitely unique. I don't love all of them, but this one I did like enough, and there is one other that I do like enough that I think I will also buy a 10 ml vial of it. And the other thing too is I just love the fact that he's made 10 ml atomizers available for purchase, because, you know, I don't want to buy massive big bottles of perfume anymore. So thank you, Justin, for introducing me to Berlin New Year's Eve, and I look forward to talking through some of these other fragrances as well. But definitely do check him out. You know, again, I do want to give some airtime to some Australian perfumers, because, you know, Australia is a long way away from everyone else in the world. So I just want to make sure I'm supporting my home turf, as well as all of the other wonderful perfumers across the globe that I enjoy as well. So thank you very much, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.